So you pointed out something about how, you have like southern states with our, let's say, I guess more lax gun laws, and then that's kind of creating the market for guns transitioning over into places like New York and things of that nature. A lot of times the anti-gun side, so to speak, they say they blame their gun violence on those states and their lax gun laws. Do you think there's some merit to that?
I understand if you're in a state and you have certain laws and all these guns are pouring in from a source state, why you would have an issue. But I think when you kind of look at the bigger picture, you can't blame that free market. You can't blame that for your problems.
Yeah.
Look at your own problems. Police your own people.
Yeah. Like you clearly have a demand for it. In your state, right?
So you can't. It's like blaming the automaker for if you're having more DUIs or whatever it is.
This episode of the Colion Noir podcast is brought to you by Vetter Holsters. Welcome to another episode of the Colion Noir podcast. And joining me is Lou Velosi. I want to say Lou Velosi because I want to make you Mexican.
That'll work. Whatever. I'll take it. Yeah.
What's going on, man?
Man, it's an honor for me to be here, man. I want you to know that. Been watching your show forever, man.
Thanks, brother.
Me and a lot of ATF agents. Big fans.
See, I'm not really like. I've heard that maybe one other time because I would assume they hated me.
Listen, I'm talking about the rank and file special agents, the men and women on the ground. Vast majority are NRA members, fans of yours, and think the same way you think.
See, a lot of people don't know that.
It's the truth.
I don't think a lot of people know that. So is it safe to say largely, if we're talking at the very top of the food chain, we're dealing with the ATF on surface level, right? Not down to rank and file, as you just stated. They're kind of going whatever the him and all of the current administration.
They're worried. That top echelon. They're worried about their resumes. After they get out of the government,
gotcha.
So they'll swing whatever way the administration's swinging, and that's where you usually get some bad decisions.
Gotcha. So how did you get your start? As far as you, because you're on a beautiful, I might say, but different path now.
Yeah.
But as far as how you got your start in the agency and
I grew up in a real Italian family in New York. Not big fans of the federal government, right? My dad was an old school Italian dude who not a fan of the federal government because of the federal government was railroading innocent Italian businessmen into these RICO statutes, according to my dad, right? And so law enforcement wasn't even on my radar at all. I went to college. I went to a little college in Pennsylvania on a football scholarship. Didn't take it serious. No direction. Got out of college. Working at a bank for $8 an hour. Bouncing at a club on the weekends. And I get a call from a dude I played football with, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm down in the Bronx. Come on down. You sound miserable. Come hang." So I left work, went down there. He's sitting on the stoop. And he goes, "Man, this is actually my brother's place. He's coming home. We'll have a beer with him." So this dude pulls up. He's in a Corvette, which you don't see Corvettes in the Bronx ever, right?
Yeah, no, you don't.
And he gets out, and he's this Italian dude. He's got a Beretta 92F in his waistband. Just a cool looking dude.
Yeah.
And so we sit down at the table, and it turns out he's a DEA agent, undercover guy. Just got back from Peru, working undercover. He started telling me a little bit about the job, and the skies opened up for me. Like that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
I found my direction right there. I didn't want to be a uniformed cop. I didn't want to be NYPD or State Patrol. I wanted to be an undercover agent.
You wanted to be New York, Miami Vice.
Right. And this was Miami Vice, right? It was Tubbs and Crockett.
Yeah. All right. So I've got to give a quick shout out to Vetter Holsters. They're now sponsoring the podcast. I've been using their light tuck kydex inside the waistband holster, and what I really like is how adjustable it is. You can tweak the ride height and cant to get it exactly how you want. Plus, they've got holsters for over 450 gun models in 75 different colors, so you can pretty much find whatever you need. But here's the thing that really sets them apart: their customer service. I've heard so many stories about how they've gone above and beyond to make sure you're happy with your holster. And with a lifetime warranty and a 30-day money-back guarantee, it's clear they stand behind their products. If you're in the market for a great holster, check them out at betterholsters.com.
And so I started putting in for every alphabet letter agency. I was totally unqualified. My only advantage was I was fresh out of college. So I was in test-taking mode still.
Gotcha.
Most of the men and women putting in for these jobs are detectives, law enforcement. They've been out of college for a long time.
Yeah.
So because I was in test-taking mode, I actually scored real high on the test. Again, totally unqualified, but they were desperate for people back then. Mm-hmm. And I actually got hired as an ICE agent. Back then it was called INS in Los Angeles, where there was no undercover in that for me.
Yeah.
From the date of that conversation with Jimmy DiCaprio was his name, to my first undercover deal was 8 years, right? Because you don't just become an undercover.
Yeah.
You pay your dues. So I get hired by what is now ICE in Los Angeles, but there was no undercover in that for me. There wasn't a lot of illegal Italians in Los Angeles at the time. So, it was all Central American gangs. The Central American gangs, this was 1990, were coming into L.A.
Oh, that's at the height of
it was, no one had heard of MS-13 back then. Even our homegrown gangs, even, Bloods, Crips, the ABs, all the prison gangs, they weren't accustomed to this kind of violence. These Central American gangs were coming up and they were chopping people's heads off. They were chopping their private parts off and shoving them in their mouth. They were leaving messages. And it was all about it's always about territory. Right? Territory, to deal your drugs. And it was the best time to be law enforcement in Los Angeles in the 90s if you wanted action. Okay. So, I took a different approach, the same way I have with Undercover. I took when I first got on the job, and we'd be interviewing. They did it different back then. Mm-hmm. We were at the LA County Jail for our first 6 months, just interviewing all of the releasees on the everyone on the release line. And LA County Jail, early 90s, 80% of the inmates were foreign born. So we would interview them to determine their alienage and deportability. Yeah. So you might be interviewing like a Mexican cat with a DUI, and then the next guy is an El Salvadorian who cut someone's head off. I didn't care about the Mexican dude with the DUI. Yeah. I was fascinated by that El Salvadorian. And I would do where everyone else would do a 10-minute interview, paperwork, pass them on. I'd spend an hour with this guy. And I'd ask him, I said, man, how'd you get here? How did this happen? Like, at some point you were born, outside of San Salvador in some hut with a dirt floor with a mama who held you. How did you get to East LA where you just chopped someone's head off? Like, what was that journey, man? How'd that happen? Yeah. And I was fascinated. And when you're interviewing someone and that person talking to you actually cares, they'll open up and they'll tell you more. And so I was getting all this good information and intel, and I was passing it on to the gang unit, and so they started noticing me. They said, "Hey, man, this young Jack, like, he's putting in the extra work."
Yeah. Was there? And this is me being fascinated, right? So I'm gonna. Was there a consistency in demeanor and kind of background in terms of those type of guys? Right, because everyone's not built like that. You hear about stuff in the streets and things like that, and it's like everybody isn't a killer. Right?
That's right.
And was there something that you noticed? Was there a common thread in terms of personality types or anything like that? Or
you're spot on. Like, the look in their eyes was different. And what I found out is they were pretty carefully chosen. These gangs are so organized, and they were chosen. Like, one particular guy I remember. This was one of my first interviews. His job in El Salvador, he was the guy on a cattle farm who would all day long, he was slicing the cattle's throat, bleeding them out. That's all day long with a machete for slaughter. Yeah. And they chose him. He was a kid. They chose him because after you doing that all day, you become numb. Yeah. Right? To slicing something.
Pretty much, yeah.
And
especially flesh. Like,
absolutely, right. So, hey, a cattle or a human being. Yeah. After a while, it doesn't matter. But one thing they all consistently would tell me was that this wasn't necessarily their choice either, right? Their families back home, if they didn't do what they were supposed to do when they were here, mother, father, sisters, brothers, dead. So, and I started really seeing kind of there's a human aspect to all that. Mm-hmm. They're up here doing some terrible things. Here's the backstory, right? Here's the human side of it. You know, if you and I were in that same situation,
would be.
Yeah,
I do say that a lot. I do. Yeah. I don't say it a lot, but internally, like kind of my internal speak, when I come across stories like that, when I watch certain videos and things like that, I understand that like a lot of my life choices just simply came down to I never had to make that choice.
Yep.
All right. Yep. And the older I get, the more I kind of realize that. Because before it's like, how could you possibly, get into this point, right? I'd like to say I'm lucky enough where I never got put in a make or break decision, like choose your path, and you really don't have an option, so to speak, right? So that's why it's kind of really fascinating to me. And it's something that I've learned as I've gotten older.
I mean, we're lucky enough to be in an environment where we don't have to make that kind of choice. Yeah. The majority of these guys, they don't have that luxury. Yeah.
And it's weird. It's a weird dynamic too, right? Because it's like you could say the same thing about just the criminal element inherently.
Absolutely.
Right. But at the same time, it's like I'm still a possible victim of that criminal element. So it's like I got to do what I got to do to protect myself in that regard also, right? So it's this really interesting kind of dynamic where it's kind of like you have a level of what's the word I'm looking for? Not compassion, but yeah, I would say compassion.
Yeah, understanding.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of dynamic because like I hate what criminals do. Sure. In terms of victimization, when it comes to victimizing other people, but at the same time, like I said before, I know my life could have gone very differently. Yep. And I could have been on the other end of that whole good or bad dynamic, possibly.
Easily, and it can change like that, right? It could be one thing that could happen. I was lucky enough to have a father who told me, don't judge. Keep an open mind, because not excusing criminality or anything, he said, but people are products of their environment, and try to understand and see where they're coming from. Yeah. Without just prejudging. Yeah. And that helped me in law enforcement. It really helped me in undercover work.
Okay, because I was going to ask you about that. Like, how did that balancing act kind of come into play when you were undercover?
So I learned very quickly, like, it ain't what you look like. Like, we would have guys who would work undercover, and they'd cover themselves with tattoos and crazy hairdos and 10 earrings in each ear and all this stuff. That doesn't matter, right? That's not even getting you through the door. It's how you carry yourself, and it's understanding human psychology. It's all about how you carry yourself. It's so undercover work is so close to being a salesman. Mm-hmm. I could take any good salesman, car salesman, I don't care what they're selling, vacuum cleaners, and make them a good undercover agent, man. Because that's what it's all about. But I think understanding people and understanding psychology, knowing what to say, knowing what not to say, more importantly, is how you achieve success in undercover work. Mm-hmm. Because again, your goal, your mission, we're not the military, we're not trying to kill anybody. Our mission is to investigate credible allegations, of violations of federal law, and then to just, we get inserted. We're an undercover operative. We get inserted into this world, and our job is just to gain enough evidence for a conviction, to stop them from doing whatever they're doing, whether it's dangerous drugs or illegal guns, human trafficking. That's our mission. It's just to stop whatever's happening.
Would you say there's an element to it that where you pretty much become kind of a method actor of sorts? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get asked that all the time. Yeah. So for me, it was never really acting. Mm-hmm. It was just, I was Lou Velosi times 1,000. I just embellished who I really was. I kept it as close to home as possible, like that hustler that I always was.
Gotcha.
But I just kind of
turned it up
the
dial up. Yeah. It's kind of like me in like in front of, like, in terms of what I do in front of a camera.
Yep.
Right. For me, people ask me, like, who know me personally, what's the difference between Colion, Noir, and Collins? And I'm like, nothing. It's just Colion, Noir is just me projecting Collins more.
Yes.
That's essentially what it is.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, because if you meet me personally, I'm kind of reserved. I'm kind of chill. I'm just very kind of quiet almost. But in front of the camera, I'm like, I gotta. All right, let's bring out more Collins.
Oh, you come alive.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you were doing the undercover work, what were some of the fears that you had? Like, because I know stereotypically, right? Because my idea of undercover work is what I see on TV. Right.
Yeah.
So what type of fear? I'm thinking you're in a situation and you're like, man, I hope my cover doesn't get blown. Like, was that something that was even at the forefront of your mind, or was it something you only realized after the fact when you got back home by yourself? And
there's one fear when you're working undercover, and I get asked that all the time, like, oh, aren't you worried they're going to find out who you are? That was never it.
Okay.
Never. Because whether you're dealing with the Italian mafia or a cartel or whoever it is, if they find out who you are, 99.9% of the time, they're going to put as much distance between you and them. They don't want to bring the heat on their organization.
Gotcha.
Right? By taking a Fed out.
Yeah.
The biggest danger working undercover is that you're so believable, you're doing such a good job that they're going to rip you off and kill you, which they do to each other all the time.
Yeah.
I show up to buy 20 kilos, okay, and I got, $600,000-$700,000 on me. I've already dealt with these people maybe 4 or 5 times. This time they might say, hey, man, you know what? We're going to take that money. We're not going to give them that shit. We'll just shoot them in the head. It happens all the time in that world.
Yeah.
No honor among thieves, right? That was always the biggest danger, that the next deal was going to be a rip. And they're just going to take my money and give me one to the back of the head.
Gotcha. Were there certain deals that you were more concerned about that? Like, were you more concerned about that when it was a drug deal versus weapons, or you get what I'm saying?
The big drug deals were always the most dangerous because there was so much money involved. When you're showing up and you're fat with cash, it's so. It's so easy for them to say, all right, this time let's just take that money, man. The gun deals, already there's going to be guns involved. Right? So to me, and that's primarily what I was there for. I bought a ton of dope in my career, but I was there for illegal guns, crime guns.
Okay.
That was
let's get into that, because there's a lot. Sure, there's a lot of talking points behind that. So, easy question. How easy is it to smuggle guns into us from a criminal standpoint? Because I always talk about it's nothing for a criminal to get his hands on a gun.
Nothing.
What does that reality look like in terms of?
So here's the reality, right? There's firearms trafficking and there's firearms diversion. So firearms diversion is happening every day in this country. Firearms diversion is simple. It's just a gun going from the legal marketplace to the illegal marketplace.
Okay.
That could be as simple as, I got a gun at my house and I'm authorized to have a gun, right? So I got a buddy who's a convicted felon. He comes to my house one day, he sees that gun, he takes it. And now it's in his hands. That's firearms diversion, right?
Okay.
The gun was in the legal marketplace. It just went to the illegal marketplace.
Gotcha.
It's illegally possessed now.
Okay.
And there's a million examples.
Yeah.
And that, again, that happens every day. Firearms trafficking is a more organized thing where you have maybe straw purchases or whatever it is, and there's guns in mass, going from source states, like a lot of southern states, to target states like market, New York, New Jersey up there. I think us as ATF, we've done a pretty good job knocking off most of those big operations. It's still happening. It happens internationally a lot too now. But firearms diversion is the big problem in America, where guns are just getting into the hands of crazy people and violent people. And next thing you know, all of us law-abiding citizens are getting a bad name with firearms because some fringe crazy people are getting them.
So from your experience and your background, so let's talk about it from like a solution-oriented standpoint, right? From your experience, what, if any, right? There may not even be an answer to this, but what do you think could help mitigate a lot of that in terms of making sure that guns? Because even the hardcore gun guys, right? They don't want guns getting into the wrong hands, so to speak, right? So from your perspective and everything that you've seen and experienced, are there some thoughts that you have in terms of how could we mitigate those guns from a diversion standpoint happening less? And
I think there's two things that'll help. Nothing that'll solve the problem, but two things that'll help. Here's the two things. Deterrence is number one. Like when you do get this crazy shooter, right? And just pick one recently, right? There's been so many. Deterrence. I'm all for the death penalty. You take someone's life for no reason. You're using a gun. I'm all for the death penalty.
Yeah.
Make it public, whatever you have to do, because deterrence does work. When they see that, you're going to think twice about it. Mental health is number 2.
Gotcha.
And that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Very tough to have a mental health test for everyone who's purchasing a firearm, right? That's a tough one.
Yeah.
There's, as a lawyer, you know there's all sorts of issues going on there. However, I do believe there's certain conditions that we can monitor, you know, and maybe if someone's prohibited from buying a gun today, that doesn't mean they can't get help at some point,
and
maybe have one. But you know, mental health is a big issue. When you look at most shooters, even in these crazy, a lot of like urban settings and a lot of these rural settings where you're getting these incredibly violent acts, the majority of them, there's mental health issues going on with these guys.
Yeah, probably. I'm assuming it's exacerbated by drug use too.
Without question.
Yeah,
without question.
Yeah, the mental health thing is an interesting one, right? Because it's what's happening right now, and I'm guilty of doing it too. On the one side, it's like mental health. We need mental health. Like make mental health laws, and then it's just kind of this blanket approach to it, right? And then I'm like, it's not that easy, so I dismiss it from a blanket approach side, right? It's not that easy, but it never really gets down into the weeds of trying to figure out like how does, because it's dirty, you know what I mean?
Oh, for sure,
right? And it's not an exact science. You know, you can have somebody who's paranoid schizophrenic who's never been violent a day in their life, and then you can have a paranoid schizophrenic who goes completely batshit and tries to kill everybody. Right. Maybe I need to think about finding a guest that can kind of start having those type of conversations, because it never really happens.
Well, you're right. It could be a slippery slope, right? Because you could just be going through a real tough period in your life and have some issues. But there's a possibility you can come out of that and be okay. So who's to judge all that? That's the problem. But from what I saw in my career and from interviews that I conducted with some of the worst of the worst, you know, of guys who were just involved in really bad gun violence, there was that common theme was mental problems. I mean, there was something going on there. They were willing to do things that me and you aren't willing to do.
Yeah. Now, do you think those people would have? So essentially, they were going to do and engage in that level of behavior, regardless whether they got their hands on a gun or not.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
They just chose a gun because it's, I guess, more
Easiest.
efficient. Exactly. So you pointed out something about how, you know, you have like southern states with our, let's say, I guess, more lax gun laws, and then that's kind of creating the market for guns transitioning over into places like New York and things of that nature. I guess because a lot of times the anti-gun side, so to speak, you know, they say they blame their gun violence on those states and their lax gun laws. Do you think there's some merit to that?
I don't. You remember Bloomberg, and so he was coming down to Georgia and South Carolina and a lot of those states because so many of the guns being used in crimes in New York and that whole Northeast area were coming out of the source states, out of Georgia, out of South Carolina. He was, you know, there were lawsuits and they were using sending private investigators in to try and do straw purchases at some of these gun stores down south, and I understand that. Yeah. You know, I understand if you're in a state and you have certain laws and all these guns are pouring in from a source state, you know, why you would have an issue. But I think when you kind of look at the bigger picture, you can't blame, you know, that free market. You can't blame that for your problems. Yeah. And that's what he was doing. You know, your problems. Look at your own problems. Police your own people. Yeah.
Like you clearly have a demand for it. In your state, right?
So you can't. You know, it's like blaming, you know, the automaker for if you're having more DUIs or whatever it is. Yeah. You know, I didn't really agree with all that. And it is very true that all these cities and states with the harshest gun laws and the most restrictive gun laws have the most gun crime.
I wonder if some of that has to do with the what's the word I'm looking for? Having to do with the novelty, right? So you have southern states where everybody's just used to guns. Yep. Right? So it's a gun's nothing. I have a gun, fine, whatever. Whereas you have states where it's not as easy to acquire a firearm legally. And so when a lot of these, you know, street gangs, whatever you want to call them, they do get them. They're kind of more inclined to use them because of the novelty aspect of it. It's like, oh my God, I have a gun. I'm, you know, that gives me that Yeah, I wonder how much.
Along those same lines, that is why, well, that's why gun trafficking is so lucrative. So I could buy a high point 9mm for $130 in Georgia from an FFL.
Yeah.
I can go to New York. I can go to Brooklyn. I can sell that gun easily for $1,000 on the street.
Crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
So again, it's a novelty,
Yeah.
right? Because they can't go into a store and buy that gun. So, I think all of that kind of, when you add it all up, that is why I think probably a lot of the issues up there, because it is so restrictive, maybe if you loosened it up, it would slow crime down a little.
Yeah.
Down south, every lady walking around has a cute little gun in her purse, right? You try to jack her, you
never know what you might be getting
exactly.
into. Yeah.
So why not try it up there?
I think people are scared to kind of do the less obvious, right? Because
Sure.
I guess obvious is, and also when you're the one with the hammer, right? The government, it's kind of easier to say no. We just make it harder and harder, restrict, right? Versus the opposite approach, which could be, well, kind of just create an equal playing field, I guess, of sorts. It's not like the criminals are not getting their hands on these guns in the first place. They're still getting them.
Absolutely.
Right. I just saw a video not too long ago. I forgot where it was. It was somewhere where it was in a state where guns were. I think it was New York.
Yeah.
And it was in a bar. And it turned into a shootout inside the bar in New York. And it's like, and I think 11 people got hit or something like that. And I'm like, you're not even supposed to be able to have guns in these places, right? But they did.
Yeah.
Right. And then the only people who kind of, and all of us were kind of like idiots and caught in the middle of this shit.
Sure.
Because it's not, I'm not saying that in that exact moment, an innocent person having a gun would have made it better, but you don't know.
Possibly.
Exactly. Right.
And like you said, again, you could drop me off in any city in this country. Give me $1,000 and just drop me out of a helicopter in the middle of any city in this country. I guarantee you I'll have a gun within 2 hours. I guarantee it.
And that says a lot.
Yeah.
So have you noticed in your time dealing with the gun trafficking and stuff, was there a gun of preference? Or did it kind of skew towards certain types of criminals versus other types? Like they favored pistols or they favored rifles or even specific type of guns and so forth?
It was the 9mm pistol was
Gotcha.
always the tool of the trade. That's what everyone wants. And again, that's why there was such a profit margin for these like Lorsons and High Points, which are just they're crappy guns that you can melt with a match.
Yeah.
But up in New York, they're getting $1,500, $2,000 for one of these things, right? And everyone just calls them a Glock. Oh yeah, it's a Glock. So that the 9mm pistol is definitely the weapon of choice for all criminals.
Yeah.
I found out this real fast working undercover. There is really very little true ideology in this country, especially when it comes to gangs. They don't really care about, I don't care who, I dealt with everyone. I don't care if it's the Aryan Brotherhood, the Gangster Disciples, the Latin Kings, the cartels. All they care about is money. There's, among real criminal organizations, all they care about is money. They don't care what color you are, what religion you are, what your sexual preference is. If you can make them money, then they'll deal with you. They just don't care. It is always about money. It's about, I should say, money and territory is what it's always about.
Gotcha. Which I guess territory comes down to the ability to make money.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. And when you think about how these criminal they're all the same. Like the Bloods and the Crips, you can wear your certain colors in your area. The biker gangs, they wear their cuts with their specific colors. And, if they cross into another biker gang's territory, they'll just shoot them right off their motorcycle, right? It's always the same. And again, it's just about money. That's what it's always about.
Gotcha. So, I guess the gun running is that profitable?
It's insanely profitable. Probably more profitable than drugs. There's just not the quantity, that there are with drugs.
Yeah. And I guess ease of movement too?
For the guns?
Yeah. I guess because I'm assuming it's a lot easier to move a key of coke than it is.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
you know, we used to have traps in our undercover cars, you know, which the criminals have traps in all their cars, right?
Yeah.
Where, you know, you press, you put it on a certain station and press the fan button on the on your AC, and the back of the seat opens up.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had informants who would put these in for us into our cars. And, you know, you could fit maybe 15 kilos or, you know, 25 guns in there and move them. But again, 15 kilos is worth a lot more money than 25 guns. So, yeah, for sure it was ease of movement with the drugs.
Gotcha. So when you were doing some of this stuff on the cover, I'm assuming you were carrying?
Maybe 75% of the time.
Really?
Yeah. There was a lot of places you couldn't.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know,
yeah.
And if they found one on you, you would have been in big trouble.
Oh,
so there
really?
were situations where you couldn't carry.
So if let's say shit went south on the deal.
Yeah.
Right. What type of any backup did you have? Was there any, like, I'm pretty sure, you know, working with agents, they knew, okay, we're about to do this deal. This is about to go down. Did you have, you know, with outside perimeter help or anything like that? Or you were just, you're in the shits, and if you made it out, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, the majority of times, and I'm not being dramatic here, I'm just telling you the truth, your cover team was there to avenge your death. Because in reality, if they really were going to kill you, that cover team ain't getting there in time. Right?
Gotcha.
It's not happening.
Gotcha.
But we always did have a cover team when possible. So there were some situations where, especially like working these bikers, it's just not realistic for a cover team to be tailing you all the time. It's not happening.
Yeah.
You know, there's always things you try to avoid. I always tried to avoid any deal that wasn't on the first floor, right? Because your cover team's never getting up the stairs.
Yeah.
That's never happening. So you try to make it as safe a venue as possible. So I started doing these storefronts in the end of my career where the criminals were coming to me, and at least we could control the venue. So that's about as safe as you're going to get in any undercover deal. If someone's just going to pull their gun out and shoot you in the forehead.
That's a good point, yeah. There's nothing you can do.
It's
already happened.
Yeah, I don't care if you got the Delta and the Navy SEALs covering you. It's not going to, all they're going to do is avenge your death.
I told you, the TV, man. TV makes me think, everything starts slowly building up, and it's like, all right, cut it, send them in, right?
It's just not happening, right?
Gotcha.
You know, your best, as an undercover, when you see that it's starting to go bad, you got to do everything, you know, with your skills and ability to drag it out, you know, and give the signals in hopes that, you know, that cover team heard the signal and they're coming your way. But again, you know, that's not always going to work.
Gotcha.
You know?
Gotcha. So now, in civilian life, are you ever worried or concerned, just kind of going about day to day, like I helped put that guy away. He's out now. Is that something that crosses your mind?
Never. You know, I've kind of gone public somewhat, you know, with the book, and I had a TV show on HBO. I've run into two guys since I retired. Met a guy at Home Depot. Guy came up to me, and he goes, "You don't remember me, do you?" And you know what? I mean, there was thousands, right? I don't remember it. I said, "No, I don't, man." He goes, "Man," he goes, I just got out. He said he went away for, I think it was 8 years he had gone away for. He goes, "You saved my life, man." He goes, "You know, I was on a path." He goes, I would have been dead.
Yeah.
He said, "I would have been dead." He goes, "You know," he goes, I know it wasn't personal what you did. And he goes, "In a weird way, you ended up saving my life." And then we hugged it out and exchanged phone numbers, man.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what's up. That's crazy.
Yeah, you know, I have guys that I have reached out to me after they've gotten out of prison, and I now have a relationship with them, man. Because, you know, again, like we were talking about, it's product of your environment. And here's what I believe with our system. And I know it doesn't happen most of the time, but our system is a great system. It just doesn't work the way it's supposed to work. The way it's supposed to work is that you commit a crime, I commit a crime, I have to pay for that crime. Yeah. I get caught, I have to pay my dues, right, to society for the crime if I hurt someone, whatever I did. I go to prison, you know, I lose a portion of my life. Yeah. You know, they take my freedom from me, which is the worst thing you can do to somebody, is strip them of their freedom. I pay that price, I get out, and there's redemption. I become a better person, I start contributing to society. That's the way I want it to work. Yeah. And sometimes it does work. It just, I don't know, I think the system's become so big that it doesn't it doesn't work as much as it should.
I've always said, especially when I was in law school, I realized at the point I was like, the system is borderline perfect.
It is.
The problem is it's run and being facilitated by imperfect people.
Yes.
So that's where the imperfections start coming in.
The execution isn't happening. But the whole thing. I'll just give you an example.
Okay.
You remember when Michael Vick came back and people were kind of pissed off that they let him back in the NFL and all that. And I used to, because I live in Georgia, and he was on the Falcons. I said, listen, man, that dude, he committed a crime. He did wrong. He went to prison.
Yeah.
He paid for it, probably for longer than a normal person would have, because he was a celebrity. I think they whacked him a little harder.
And dogs.
Yeah, for sure. But he paid, he paid the price.
Yeah.
So our system is all about now, let him re-enter society. You can't hold it against him now. Let him do his thing, make his money and let him run. That's the way it's supposed to work in America.
Yeah.
You can't, once someone pays their dues and pays the price for a crime, you got to give them opportunity at that point, man. That's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, and it's, again, it's my kind of, I won't call it conflicting, but it is definitely, like I said, it's a balancing act, right? Because it makes no sense if somebody commits a crime, goes to jail, then comes out, and you give them no opportunity for redemption, then their only option is to engage in the same, be able to go right back to where they were doing before. Right?
Vicious cycle, right?
Exactly.
There. Yeah.
And at the same time, it's kind of like, well, how do you create a system that can filter out? Because a lot of I've learned a lot of recidivism is actually just I don't have any other options.
No opportunity.
Right? Yeah. But then at the same time, there is an element where it's like they're irredeemable. There's no way they're just gonna do what the fuck they do, right? So it's like, how do you filter and create a system that can kind of filter for that? Because I agree with you. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I'm very much of the mindset of somebody does their time, comes out. Let them redeem themselves.
Yes.
I even gone from a position where I was like felons should never be able to own guns again to like, you know what? Actually, I do think there should be a pathway.
So do I.
For felons to be able to own. Because especially if somebody trying to redeem themselves, they deserve the ability to protect their life just as much as everybody else.
Yes.
So I'm there with you on that in that regard. But again, how does that system look, right? Like it's kind of hard. It's easy for me to say, create a system to do that. But what does that look like?
Well, I think, like everything in life, it's almost got to be a case-by-case basis. But I believe that if we can't give someone an opportunity after they've paid a heavy price, then the whole system is upside down.
Yeah.
And, my only exception to that rule, to what I'm saying, is for guys who hurt kids.
Yeah, that's
if you have that illness, then you got to be removed.
Put you on an island and
But everybody else, man, I have a good friend. His name is Mel Chancey. He was a former Hell's Angel.
Okay.
He was he's good friends with Dwayne Johnson, and Dwayne Johnson is bought his life story, and him and John Bernthal are going to play Mel and the ATF agent who locked Mel up. Now, Mel was the president of the Chicago Hells Angels. He did some bad things because that's what outlaw bikers do.
Yeah.
ATF guy went undercover. My mentor got him on RICO statutes. Mel went to prison. All right. Mel found God, truly found God. He's probably spent a quarter of his life in prison, but he got out, and his whole mission in life now is to help others like him. And I mean, a true story of redemption. And to me, I always use him as an example. That's what it's supposed to look. That's what the American justice system is supposed to look like, there. I just hope everyone it can be that way for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Because like I said, simple life decisions or like circumstances that I never had to encounter when I was younger could have easily put me on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Sure.
So I thank God that I never had to face those decisions. Who knows? I might have actually made the right decision. I don't know.
Right.
But I could have easily just as made the wrong decisions as well, right?
And once you make that first wrong one, you're going down that.
Yep. There's
right
cascading effect, unfortunately.
Yep.
But with that being said, so what's in the near future? What projects and things do you have going on?
All right. So I I kind of chose the entertainment industry as my second career, which was I think it was a bad move because I thought I was dealing with bad people when I was in law enforcement, but this whole Hollywood thing.
It's a different animal. Yeah. It's
So I wrote the book kind of as a mental health exercise, but it ended up doing really well. I got my second book coming out here in April. Okay. So Hollywood company bought my life rights. They bought the book. They've got it over at Netflix right now. But as you know, it takes forever. Yep. Right? Years go by. I had a TV show on Discovery and HBO Max called Operation Undercover.
Yeah.
I was going around the country, embedding myself with undercover units. It was mostly fentanyl, mostly cartels bringing fentanyl in, and I thought it was really good. It had a full season, and then it didn't get the second season for whatever reason.
It's like when they don't do second seasons of my favorite shows, and I'm like, why? This was awesome. It's ridiculous. But I guess everything's money, right?
Everything's money, right? So, but I'm still plugging away. My day job is actually doing some contract work, helping out the government with the illegal vape situation.
Okay.
If you don't mind talking about that just for a minute, because I didn't realize how bad things were.
Yeah.
So these illegal vapes, they come from China, and I could show you a video of where these factories where they use children to make these vapes.
Oh, based on plate.
So they're putting chemicals, totally unregulated chemicals, liquid chemicals, in these plastic containers. Most of them have little computer screens now, and they have a USB port, and they have a lithium battery, which heats up those chemicals. So all the lithium, cadmium, and all that from the batteries going into the chemical liquid into your lungs. So unlike cigarettes, where even if you smoke for decades, your lungs will clean themselves out eventually. The deadly vape chemicals turns into like a jelly-like substance in your lungs. They call it popcorn lung.
I think I've heard of that, yeah.
Our kids in school, every break they're sucking on these vapes. Ask any school resource officer, the biggest problem in every school right now, it's not fighting, it's vapes.
Oh no, these younger kids, they vape their life away. Like, it's crazy.
And they're dying. And it's an epidemic. So, the FDA made these vapes illegal federally. But the FDA didn't really have an enforcement arm, right? You don't see the FDA SWAT team anywhere. Yeah. So now the state of Texas just made them illegal.
Yeah.
Many states, California, are starting to make these things illegal. Now the DEA has taken over the vape issue. So CBP, DEA, they're starting to seize, because the Chinese are mislabeling the shipments when they come into our country.
Okay.
Right? They're saying it's soap or whatever, and they're coming in, and it's killing our youth. So we're going around, we're buying these vapes from these different vape shops, and we're sharing this information with law enforcement, now with attorney generals and the DEA, and they're acting on this now because, again, we have enough problems in this country, especially health problems. Yeah. We don't need these vapes destroying our youth and everyone else. So I look at it as just as important as the work I was doing with dangerous drugs and guns. This is the health of our children here in America.
No, that I'm telling you, I see it day in and day out, and it's like young kids too. It's not even. Yeah. It's not like it's just adults, and I'm just like, I remember I grew up in an era where it was like you would sneak to the bathroom to go smoke a cigarette, and that was the worst thing you could ever do in life. Right. So you have to they're just openly just.
And you can actually one vape cartridge now. They're getting like 50,000 puffs off one, and I mean you might as well. You're better off smoking a master case of cigarettes than this one vape cartridge. And again, it never clears your lungs. So we
didn't know that.
Yeah, we gotta save our kids, man.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's nuts.
So that's paying the bills. Doing that kind of work while I'm waiting on Hollywood, to
good old Hollywood
to make something. But yeah, boy, there's everyone tells you're great. And that your story is it's going to hit. You're great, but nobody sends you a check. Ain't nobody writing me a check, man. But I do a lot of speaking. I talk at law enforcement conferences all over the country, and you know, I have a message. You know, my career did not end well. You know, I had gotten kind of carried away with myself. You know, Sal Nunziato was my undercover identity.
Yeah. That's Italian as fuck.
Yeah. So Sal Nunziato's life was way better than Lou Veloci's life, right? Because I'd be going, you know, you just think about it.
Yeah.
Think about you going to some city where you don't know anyone. You've got a driver's license, you got credit cards, passport, all in another name, right?
Yeah.
You can be your own person.
Yeah.
And you have a mission, but you also have free time.
Yeah.
You know what happened? You know, idle hands, right?
Yep.
So it can lead to bad behavior. And I had gotten wrapped up in my own thing. Professionally, I was killing it. I was at the peak of my career and all that, but personally, I was a train wreck. I was getting all sorts of awards professionally, and you know, I wasn't getting husband of the year, father of the year, friend of the year for sure. So I kind of burned out real bad and got out. And so when I speak to these gang units and narcs and all these, I can see in their eyes they're going through similar stuff to what I was going through. And it's funny, like when you go to these, like the Southern California Gang Investigators Association, like you look out in the crowd, it looks like gang members. I mean, these guys, right? Like cholo dudes, right? But they're cops who are selling out to try and help their communities. And I try to get the message across that, listen, your pension is the most important thing in your career. We're one of the last careers that still has a pension. Your goal should be to earn that pension for longer than you worked. Like I worked for 26 years. My goal is to live 27 years to get my pension. Because I feel I'm owed that. You know, I earned it. And that's what I tell them. Like, I know it seems so important, that case you're on right now. But go home, and whoever's there when you open the door, I don't care if it's your wife, your husband, your in-laws, your dog or your cat, that's who's going to be there for you. Right? When you're on your deathbed, the DEA won't be there, ATF won't be there, you know, the NYPD. Your family, your friends, you know, your faith, that's what's important. And just keep that perspective, because it's so easy, you know, when you get in these specialized units in law enforcement, to just dive all the way in and you just leave everything else in your life behind. You know, that's the message I try to put out, man. You know?
No, absolutely.
It's and now, you know, I get excited when I go to these things, because when I see who is working now, like, you know, there's incredible female undercovers that are just killing it now, right? And we got, you know, diverse people from all across the board who are just doing incredible work. But I worry, I don't want them to end up the way I did, man. You know, and that's a message I try to spread, man.
Yeah, I can definitely see how you can kind of get too deep. And then you kind of like your real life and that life start merging.
You start believing your own bullshit, man. You know, and kind
of like Peter.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's for another episode.
Right. I want to get deep into it though.
But no, man, I really appreciate you, man. I really appreciate you for coming on the podcast, and I think you provide a perspective a lot of people don't really get to hear a lot. So I thank.
All right, hey man, listen, I want to say one thing.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
You have no idea how many fans you have in the ATF.
I don't know if that's. I don't know if I should be happy or scared.
No. You should be happy, because I can tell you right now, the men and women of the ATF, you know, the ones on the street that I work with, are huge proponents of the Second Amendment. Right? We all believe in gun rights. We want the good citizens of this country to arm themselves and defend themselves. And I can tell you, everyone in ATF knows who you are. They watch your show, and they're fans, man.
If you're trying to make me feel good, you're doing a terrible job at it.
Listen,
all you're doing is instilling fear, and I'm playing.
You have no idea how many phone calls I got when the word got out that I was coming here, man.
That's awesome.
Like, so,
that's awesome. Well,
so God bless you. Keep doing what you're doing.
All you've told me is that I can never fuck up. But no, seriously, man, that's actually good to know, right? Because we usually only get, like I said, the surface level face. Right. And so the surface level face isn't always a good face for us in the gun community, right? And so knowing that there are people on the inside who are doing their best to kind of, and I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially people, hardworking people who, they work at a company, and sure, they would like to do things certain ways, but
yes,
people at the top make the decisions. And so that's actually good to know.
Okay. Yeah. God bless you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely will do. Thanks, man.
All right.
Much appreciated.